We're all around this precious prayer, but because it is my native land, and my home is there, but because it is my native land, and my home is there.
This is a little historical ballad. I actually wrote this for the 90th anniversary of the Limerick Soviet, so it was around a while. So it goes like this. We stood up to the memory of Bobby Burton's brave when 20,000 mourners assembled at the grave. The army gave the order, it was one that they'd regret. The military tried to crush the rebels on the street. We asked for simple things, like to march and sing our songs. They responded with their barricades, their curfews and their guns. 2 men died upon the bridge, a third in Pomon Gate, back in the days of the Limerick Soviet. And we'll raise our red flag high, and our spirit will not die, and we'll walk with heads held high as the bishop passes by. And we will not doff our hat, no, we will not bend the knee, and all the world will see that the workers will be free. Then came the TUC, 3 powerful men and true. But were they on the worker side, or did they fear them too? They asked, what is your motive, or who will benefit? We're making bread, not profits, said the banners up the streets. Now up here in headquarters, while your actions we admire, say this is not the kind of rebellion we desire. But can't you see that we have gone as far as we can get, and our patience is exhausted, said the Limerick Soviet. And we'll raise our red flag high, and our spirit will not die, and we'll walk with heads held high as the bishop passes by. And we will not doff our hat, and we will not bend the knee, and all the world will see that the workers will be free. Now the wealthy ones of banking and of business in the town, to relieve the situation, were asked for a few pounds. But those fine merchant men who'd never seen an empty plate, they left the hungry families abandoned to their fate. Down in a dim-lit cellar, the printing presses rolled, saying this paper is our bond that's better than the sovereign's gold. If you're going to bleed us dry, that's as much as you will get. Without your help, we'll do it, said the Limerick Soviet. And we'll raise our red flag high, and our spirit will not die, and we'll walk with heads held high as the bishop passes by. And we will not doff our hat, no, we will not bend the knee, and all the world will see that the workers will be free. Now the aeroplanes are dipping through the purple Shannon sky. In glass and concrete factories, our hopes are rising high. But the bosses, they would like us to forget from where we came, and all their empty promises are sounding just the same. So we'll hold your memory sacred, with your courage in our hearts, and with you as inspiration, we'll fight until the last. And if we are downtrodden, and they want us to submit, we'll recall the men and women of the Limerick Soviet. Yes, if we are downtrodden, and they want us to submit, we'll recall the men and women of the Limerick Soviet. And we'll raise our red flag high, and our spirit will not die, and we'll walk with heads held high as the bishop passes by. And we will not doff our hat, no, we will not bend the knee, and all the world will see that the workers will be free. Good
afternoon, everybody. I just want to speak on behalf of the Limerick Writers Centre. The sun and everything shines with brotherhood, and every man is equal under that eternal sun of solidarity. Those lines from the Madrid poet Clara Yanes, translated by John Liddy and published in this book, encapsulates what today's celebration is all about the Limerick Soviet, an autonomous workers' movement in this city which made a worldwide impact 100 years ago this month. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the launch of Let Us Rise, a compelling invitation, I may suggest, as well as being the title of this new book. We may ask what happened to that rebellious light that shone so brightly for 2 weeks in April 1919. It would appear in many ways that it has been eclipsed by the corporate gods and the financial elites. But revolutionary events bring about an awakening in our lives, and today we have the opportunity to remember the revolutionary events of 1919 here in Limerick and perhaps learn from them. This is one of the reasons the Limerick Writers' Centre published this commemorative anthology. As my co-editor John Liddy states in the preface, it is his hope that if we can place this book in the hands of the young, thinking and interested reader, the lessons learned from the Limerick Soviet will have reached a new generation who in turn can cause for the powers that be to reconsider their approach to social justice, inclusiveness and equality in today's society. In his contribution to the anthology, Micheál O'Hay of the University of Limerick tells us that the communal memory of the Limerick Soviet and what happened to working class people during that seminal month of April 1919 cannot be underestimated. He says that the time is more than opportune to remember again the legacy of these Limerick men and women who took on the might of the British Empire. But what does those events of 19 mean in the cultural, social, artistic and political climate of today? This is what this book tends to clarify. Bread, not profits, was one of the slogans of the revolutionary spirit of 1919. Unfortunately, today, we have bought into the profit motive hook, line and sinker, and the results are plain to see. We are now in a highly unequal country. And we are all aware of the pervasive consequences of housing, health, education, social justice, life chances, etc. Only last weekend in the Irish Times, the journalist Kitty Holland told us that the male unemployment in some disadvantaged parts of Limerick City is 69%. She also wrote that children and teenagers in the poorest parts of Limerick have almost no access to the arts. Although largely ignored by the local media, I was glad to see that Professor of Sociology at UL, Dr. Endeavoured, posted a tweet in which he described Holland's article as brilliant. Holland's point about young people in the poorest parts of the city having almost no access to the art bears thinking about. It is part of the mission of the Limerick Writers' Centre to democratise the arts, especially literature, so that all can benefit. Often, having exorbitant ticket prices and holding events in exclusive venues denies ordinary people access to the arts and cultural events. We are almost at the end of April's Poetry Month in Limerick Festival. Our festival puts accessibility for everyone at the forefront of our objectives. There are no entry fees, and we use venues like cafes, bars, community centres and the streets of Limerick for the majority of our events. In his contribution to this book, local author Mike McGrath recreates a manifesto for 1919, and I'd like to finish with a few lines from that. The manifesto proclaims, "Long live the journey of October's revolution into the dawn of a Limerick spring. Long live the resolve of our workers, our merchants, our city, our shared realm. We purport that all humans are equal citizens of the world. We now declare ourselves the first outpost of Irish egalitarianism in full assurance that the rights of the labouring classes will at last prevail. Long live the Soviet." Ladies and gentlemen, it is the purpose of this book to declare once again that all humans are equal citizens of the world. Thank you.
I'm going to go into the preface I wrote for this book because maybe people here haven't actually had a chance to look at that. And I believe in these words because it explains exactly why I wanted to be part of a book of this nature. Changes in people's lives can come about in many ways. Through death of close ones and friends, separation, invasion, siege and war. Brute force of an occupying power, endemic violence, natural and man-made disaster such as hurricane, tsunami, and the after effects of flooding, collapse of ecosystems, drought, famine, pollution, and sometimes through policies enacted by elected representatives. But no change for the better can equal that brought about by people power. Whether it is expressed in ballot box or mass demonstration, when people flex their communal muscle and hold their nerve, the target of their indignation trembles and usually gives way. Examples of the impact on our lives of small and large protests abound throughout the world we inhabit. From the Paris Commune in 1871 and the riots in 1968, to Moscow in 1917, to the All-Ireland general election in 1918, to the suffragette movement in England, to Martin Luther King's Great March on Washington in 1963, to the Madrid March in repulsion of 192 deaths in train bombings in 2004, when news came in on the very marchers' mobiles and on TV screens that the government had lied to the people by blaming ETA. Some even implicated the IRA and consequently lost the general election. To the 6 million women and men who took to the streets in March 2019 in support of better education and health facilities, equality and against violence to their kind, to the handful who defy corrupt regimes throughout the world and the silent ones who go unsung. The list is endless and stretches from Beijing to Boston, San Francisco to Sydney, Lahore to Limerick, and the vital ingredient in all of these protests is people. For 2 weeks in April 1919, the people of Limerick from all classes and ideologies stood together against a military power and ran the affairs of their own city, even printing their own money. This momentous undertaking is known as the Limerick Soviet, a collective of lay-councillors, Sovietiers, who organised the population and received its backing and support. I will not go into detail here on the background to the actual event or the event itself, as it is more than adequately covered in poem and prose by the contributors to this anthology. Suffice to say that what moved me to take on the editorship of this book with Dominic was my admiration for every man and woman who took part in that 2-week protest. Together, they at least achieved the lifting of martial law, and if it had not been for other vested interests, such as Sinn Féin's national question and the Church losing power over the minds and souls of their flocks, the spread of such a noble protest would have surely found voice throughout Ireland. The people's exemplary conduct and willingness to take a stand against tyranny is what inspires me even today, 100 years later. It made this editorial task all the more worthwhile because I believe if we can place this book in the hands of the young, thinking and interested reader, The lessons learned from Limerick Soviet will have reached a new generation who in turn can give cause for the powers that be to reconsider their approach to social justice, inclusiveness and equality in today's society, which is, when all is said and done, belongs to the people, you. Thank you very much.
Dominic and John, co-editors, and to everybody here, you're all very, very welcome to this launch today for the book Let Us Rise, and on what particular day? International Workers' Day. How apt. My name is Anne McGee and I'm the president of Forsa. Our new 80,000 strong trade union is delighted to be associated with the publication of this magnificent book, Let Us Rise, and indeed with this month's commemoration of the Limerick Soviet. I want to congratulate the Limerick Writers' Centre on taking the initiative and bringing this project to fruition. And I particularly want to thank Dominic Taylor of the Centre and co-editor of Let Us Rise for inviting me to participate in this launch. Forsa are proud to be associated with this initiative on the anthology commemorating the Limerick Soviet 1919. The short-lived Limerick Soviet was born during a decade of international trade union and revelatory upheaval on foot of the First World War. It is rightly associated with that international fever which saw revolutions, uprising and strikes from St. Petersburg to Berlin, Vienna, Budapest and Turin. It also represents an important chapter in the struggle for Irish freedom, provoked as it was by the declaration by the British military of Limerick as a special military area after the events following the arrest of Bobby Byrne. And its commemoration takes its proud place in Irish Labour history too. We're here a few years after we marked the kickouts of Wexford and Dublin, and just a couple of months after we acknowledged the Belfast engineers' strike, which played such an important role in the union victory that was the 39-hour working week. When Limerick Trades Councils and Labour Council declared a general strike on the 13th of April 1919, a strike supported by more than 15,000 workers in the city, it became part of that history. The Soviet demonstrated the power of union organisation and the integrity of working people working together. From food distribution through power supply, a citizens' police force and even a newspaper, it showed that working people can achieve when we are united. And the creation of its own currency was a bold challenge to the bankers, which perhaps we might have revisited on this island a few years ago. There are too many contributors, poems and prose from 30 writers or more to Let It Rise for me to mention them all. But I would like to recognise Liam Cahill, who in 1990 published that earlier history of the Limerick Soviet Forgotten Revolution. And I'd like to recognise and acknowledge Mike McNamara, the Limerick official of my own union, who is also president of Limerick Trades Council, which is behind this month's commemorations. It's fitting that they are taking this initiative at a time when Forsa, SIPTU and other unions, along with the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, are working to breathe new life into the trades councils and to put trade unions at the centre of communities across Ireland. The Limerick Soviet is an inspiration in that important work. I'd like to quote John Blady, who says this in the preface of his book, as he's also alluded to, but it certainly captured my thoughts. No change for the better can equal that brought about by people power, whether it's expressed in ballot boxes or mass demonstrations, when people flex their communal muscle and hold their nerve. The target of their indignation trembles and usually gives way. That's why we need strong unions active, not just in the workplace, but also in the community. I'll finish now by quoting Dominic Taylor, joint editor. Let Us Rise, the Limerick Soviet, was integrally a revolt against the importance of martial law in Limerick. Quickly it became a workers' revolution, began controlling the means of production and workers' own destiny. For a brief moment in time, inequality was eliminated. Likewise, we are proud to put the power of publishing into the hands of those who have contributed to this volume, Let Us Rise. Well done to all involved with the Limerick Writers Centre. Keep up the good work and creativity. I am proud and I am very honoured as the National President of FORSA to be invited here to join you all. And I thank you for the invitation. I wish the Limerick Writers Centre all the success for the future years ahead. FORSA are delighted to be associated with this publication, Let It Rise. Thank you all very much.
I think without further ado, obviously the Trades Council, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So you're the head of it at the minute, so can we say thank you to you, you and the Trades Council for allowing us this space.
Sorry, can I just say a word for a moment on that? It's been a great honour to work with all the various groups that have participated in making this festival a success. Each and every one of them, in their own right, put their heart and soul into their own events. And I think that has become evident in the way this festival has come together. I think it's very important that we remember that we don't just all have the round of applause today and go our separate ways. We will be on the pitch for a long time to come. We want to have, going forward, a workers' festival between the 28th of April each year, which is International Workers' Day, and the 1st of May. And that's hope that we can continue in the fashion, in the manner in which we've approached this particular festival with great enthusiasm. So thanks again.
So finally, I'd just like to say thanks to the Limerick Writers Centre for getting this organised and getting many publications over the years. It keeps us all busy. Every month, the first Thursday of every month, having a reading and all the rest. And but for me, I'm not a writer, but what I will say is when I see people who have been published for the first time, and you see people, they're absolutely, their confidence increases, and I think, I hope there's longevity in the Limerick Writers Centre. So I just want to say, let us rise, drink, eat and be merry. And thank you. Just before we finish, I'd just like to pay a special thank you to one or two. Obviously I want to thank my own union, FORSA. They gave us, they supported us partly with the publication of this book. Then I don't know how to express it well enough. The Limerick Youth Services Centre have been tremendous. The bread that you've all eaten here today, and I'm happy to say it's a lovely bread, and I hope you'll all agree with it. It's the students in the Limerick Youth Centre made it, and Anna's here to represent them today. Some of them were with us last night, but I'd like to say thank you very much. This solidarity. Say a word or two.
Because it is part of a collaborative arts project that I'm doing with them, so it's going to be lasting throughout the rest of this year. Because the idea of Soviet shouldn't be for a period of time; it should be perhaps the talk about the transformation of the way we live. So the bread is going to be available every Wednesday and Thursday in the Limerick Youth Service shop, which actually sells its bread for. Not based on a profit basis because it's a charity, so you will be getting bread for bread and not profits. And it's every Wednesday and Thursday while the Limerick Youth Service shop is open. That's their duration of their calendar year. But I'd also just like to say in regards to Dominic's speech, which I think for me, having been involved in some of the events throughout the month, has probably been the most powerful speech of the whole festival, and I'd like to commend him for the words that he spoke today, because I think largely some of the young people that I've been working with have felt excluded from society for so long, insofar as these are the potential new workers, the new employees that are going out there to a very precarious employment situation, and they are the ones we need to be talking about when we're talking about organising within trade unions, to understand their collective bargaining role that they have to play in changing and marching forward our society in a progressive way. So I'd like to commend you, Dominic, on that earlier speech, and just to say that a couple of the young bakers who attended the meeting last night, just to highlight Kitty Collins' article, were unable to attend today's event to present to you their bread because of financial inaccessibility to get into town from places like Corby and Castletroy. So I'd like to just to remember that when we talk about our Limerick citizens as well today. So thanks.
1919 was the year the trouble all went down. The Defence of the Realm Act was invoked by the Crown. They imposed martial law upon old Limerick town. They made the local people foot the bill. The local trades and workers' council met for 12 long hours and said we will not recognise the British Army's powers. This city is the people's, we reclaim it now as ours. It ever was and shall be ever still. We are the Limerick Soviet. We only answer to the people's plea. We care no more for their martial law than the British Army curse for you and me. Than the British Army curse for you and me. The printing workers laboured through the darkness of the night to urge the population to resist the army's might. Within 2 hours the city walls proclaimed a general strike, and Limerick responded to the call. Workers in their thousands were parading through the streets. The Irish Times was horrified and called for their defeat. For the people were in charge now, not the army or elites. So they held the torch of freedom for us all. We are the Limerick Soviets. We only answer to the people's plea. We care no more for their martial law than the British Army curse for you and me. Than the British Army curse for you and me. The Soviet Limerick, it lasted 2 weeks long, a forgotten revolution overlooked by history's song. John Cronin and his strike committee's beacon has not gone. It lights the path to justice for us still. We are the Limerick Soviets. We only answer to the people's plea. We care no more for their martial law than the British Army curse for you and me. Than the British Army curse for you and me. We are the Limerick Soviets. We only answer to the people's plea. We care no more for their martial law than the British Army curse for you and me.